Good morning, Ashton. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, as you know, my name is Jody Rock. I am a band member in Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, currently working as the health liaison. Part of the work that I do is to support health service providers in capacity building. And what that means is putting suggestions in for training of new staff, so onboarding, professional development of staff, with the end goal of having them better able to support Indigenous people as they engage with the healthcare system. So, Ashton, thank you for sitting with me today. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about traditional medicine and some of the things that have come up in my years of working within the healthcare system, some of the things that I've heard. And we're going to give Ashton an opportunity to share a little bit about how he got to be where he is today. So our first session, we're going to be looking at an introduction to Ashton, the person, and holistic healing. So I've got some questions here that I'm going to go through, and pardon me for looking down at my paper. So, Ashton, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Ani Bojo, Loda Hayani, Indigenous, Makwa and Dorem, Mississaugas of the Credit, Donjaba. My traditional name is Loda Hayani. That means that his path is put down before him. And I'm Bear Clan. I'm Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe. I've been working with and learning about traditional medicines for over 20 years now. I started when I was young, probably about 7, 8, and at about 9 years old was when I finally started to work with the medicines and give those to people. But yeah, so it's been a lifelong dedication to helping our people, learning the ceremonies and the language. So yeah.
Awesome, Miigwech. So in my work, I've heard opinions that Indigenous medicine or our traditional ways of taking care of our health and wellness is primitive, pagan, not as sophisticated as Western medicine. What do you have to say about that?
I guess in a way I would disagree with that because our ancestors, they had such a sophisticated understanding of the world around them and creation. So they understood that their place here on earth revolves around everything. We're all interconnected into everything. And the way that we view, especially our medicine, is it's a living thing. It has a spirit. We must honor that spirit when we work with it. And so to me, I don't view our medicine as being something that's pagan or something like that. It's to me, it's something that is for Native people is what we're supposed to be using and utilizing, right? I think when we look at the word mashkiki, in that word, when you literally translate it, and that's what means our medicines, mashkiki. But when you literally translate that word, mashkawazi, that means it's the strength or his or her strength, and aki means the earth. So when you translate that word, mashkiki, that means it's literally strength of the earth. So these medicines, when we view them and we look at them in that sense, right, it's telling us what we're supposed to be using them for, to give us strength in all stages of life. Yeah.
I like that. I never heard that broke down before.
Yeah.
So another criticism or reason for medical professionals to distrust traditional medicine healing practices, I've heard that physicians, other medical professionals, they go to school for 8 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, and a lot of them have the idea that that makes them better qualified than someone like yourself to be prescribing things to, repair your body and to support healing.
Yeah.
What kind of preparation have you done to be a community helper like you are?
Well, like I said, I've been learning since I was about 7 or 8. And again, that's what kind of sparked my interest because I grew up in a city and I didn't have much cultural connection. So when we moved down to the reserve, it was like being exposed to nature, being exposed to the land. And that's what drew me in. And I wanted to learn about all the plants and everything growing because I knew they had a purpose. Everything's got a purpose. And so I wanted to understand what it was, eh? And so I started going to ceremonies, I started going to fast camps, and really trying to learn as much as I could. And I think that when we look at that, maybe the training or maybe all these things that doctors go through, for medicine people, it's no different. So we get taught from teachers, elders, knowledge keepers, right? And we're constantly learning when we go anywhere. And so for me, going fasting was the first step in that, your learning process. And for some people, when they go, they might not fully understand what that means, when you go fasting. But our ancestors were so smart in the way that they taught, and that the way that they pass that knowledge on. Because when you go fasting and you're out there for 4 days, no food, no water, you might have just a limited shelter. It gets cold, so all these things, you start to feel that first night you're out there and you're there alone by yourself. And what that teaches you, especially the first time you go fasting, is it teaches you a lot. It teaches you to have compassion, to have empathy, right? Especially when you see somebody out and about, maybe they, are hungry, right? You understand that when you encounter other people, because you had those feelings before, right? Of being hungry, things like that. So it teaches you to have compassion and take care of others, eh? And for a lot of different communities and traditional people, you have to have went through a fast in order to work with medicine. People won't, trust that what you're doing or what you're prescribing to people is correct unless you've gone through a fast. And that's our own people, our own community. Okay? So you have to go through these steps and these processes of training in order to be accepted by your community, right? So these are very important things that I think go along with all of that. So our spiritual well-being, right? And so not only have I went through different fasts, but I've trained through a lot of different elders and people that had a lot more knowledge on treating various diseases, right? So it's a constant learning process no matter what we're doing, because it's not just one thing set in stone. For us, it's like when you go through all stages of life, you're learning constantly.
So you touched on something that I heard often, and I still experience it, is how physicians, they may be taught about the body and different ways of prescribing medicine, but they don't have a bedside manner.
Yeah.
That's not something that they're taught. And what you talked about relating to someone as a human, validating their human experience and using your own experiences to better relate and connect and to understand. And I think that and looking at the whole person, actually is a superior way of treating illness, just in my opinion. Yeah. So one of the things too that I understand medical professionals experience is they do ongoing learning. So they're required by their colleges to upgrade their skills. What type of professional development or ongoing learning do you do?
Well, I would say for me, myself, again, because our people, when you start to learn about medicine and they'll teach you things, or you have an elder that will sit with you and take you out, they'll teach you about the plant and they'll talk about it, what it's used for. And depending on the individual, they will either you sit there and you don't use any phones, you don't write anything down, right? You have to become so, comfortable and I guess being able to relate to that plant. So you sit there and you work with that plant for however long it takes. You learn every single thing you can about that plant. Maybe its relationship to the land, its relationship to us, its relationship to all of creation. And so once you become so comfortable and knowledgeable in that one plant, then you go to the next one and you learn more. But I think for some, it's very important to really focus and to learn on those things, right? Because again, there's insects that have a relationship with the plants as well, and so I think we have to really focus and understand that as much as the plants are a part of creation, we are too. And another thing that I do, and not everybody does this, but I started to look at all these medical journals and all these studies that are being done on certain plants, say. And as far as my own learning goes, I like to have some of that, that information that's being done. So one of the plants that I've been looking at a lot recently is Prunella vulgaris. So Prunella vulgaris is a Latin name. They call that self-heal or heal-all. So this has become a medicine that I've used extensively in a lot of my medicine because it has such an amazing ability to heal our body in a lot of different ways. So it's not only good for memory, but it's also good for people that have had strokes. They've had different kinds of brain injuries, right? So swelling in the brain. And now, as I look more into the studies and what's being done, is they're finding that it's actually good in the treatment of HIV, right, and AIDS. And so all these kinds of diseases, and that helps me in my work in knowing that when I prescribe things to people, that there's evidence to back this up. Yeah.
Awesome. What would you say to someone that says it should be one or the other? So you should go pharmaceuticals and Western medicine, or you should go, plant medicine and ceremony. It should never be both. What would you say about that?
Well, for me, myself, is so I'm constantly having to deal with this conflict in people, right? So again, our people are so distrusting of the Western system, especially in healthcare, and they're so afraid at times to go. And so one of the things that I've had to deal with in my own experience is to tell people that if you have such a distrust in using pills and taking pills like that, maybe what you should do, and I don't totally discredit Western medicine. I say it's good that they're really good at finding out what's going on in the body, looking at the body. But for our people, I tell people that if they're scared and they're worried in that way, to maybe go see the doctor, find out what's going on, especially because a lot of times they come to me and ask me, like, do you know what's going on? And I can't always give them those answers, And so that's one of the things I say with Western medicine. In a lot of ways we can work together, and other ways not so much. But what I recommend to people is to go see the doctor, figure out what's going on, and then they can come and I can make medicine for them once we know what's going on, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what ways do you see Western medicine and, our ways of healing and maintaining wellness, how do you see them working together?
Well, like I said, being able, I guess, to, I think a lot more education needs to be done, and to try and help with the fear that's involved in that. Because again, so many people have had such bad experiences in the healthcare system that they don't want to go back. And I think with the pandemic and the COVID-19 pandemic, and seeing just how, I guess, fragile that system is, when people were trying to get Tylenol and different things like acetaminophen, right? And the shelves were completely empty.
Yeah.
So that, I think, brought a lot of fear and panic in a lot of people. But again, just seeing how many of our people wanted to go back traditionally to our medicines because of that system and how fragile it is, and the fear that's involved around that. So I think a lot more education needs to be done in our communities, and making it to where our people can feel comfortable and safe in those spaces again, as far as that goes, I think that's some of the ways that we can work together, and maybe I guess on education. You know?
Yeah. That's a big thing that I see, and part of the reason why we're doing this is because there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
So a lot of narratives, so just stories that people believe themselves and they pass forward within the medical profession. What we're talking about today is meant to counter the narrative that Indigenous healers or health practitioners are not qualified in meaningful ways, and in meaningful ways that's often putting Western education and Western knowledge as superior to our ways of knowing, being, and doing, which we know is a fallacy. It's not, there's no way that their way is superior. And we talked a little bit about that in treating the whole body and looking at, so many different things. So I appreciate you sharing information about this today, and I really hope that this education will shift, things for our people in the future. Miigwech.